Welcome to Future Ready Live, where we talk about topics that will help CPAs, CGMAs, finance and accounting pros prepare for change and transformation. Today, it's about culture eats strategy for lunch. You've heard this saying, and today we're going to talk about how to create a great culture with our Chief People Officer, Sue Warman, MA and FCIPD. So joining me is Sue Warman, MA FCIPD. She's the Chief People Officer for us at the AICPA and CIMA, a global nonprofit with 600,000 members. She has a master's in management, learning, and leadership from Lancaster University in the UK, and her certification as a FCIPD, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, a prestigious membership grade within the CIPD, which is a professional association for human resource management professionals. She drives our culture that turns the flywheel with our 1,300 dedicated team members at the association across 32 offices, 6 continents, supporting our close to 700,000 members and students as the largest association of certified professional accountants in the world. Recently won recognition of Great Places to Work for the 4th year across 7 countries: China, UK, Ireland, India, USA, Republic of South Africa, and most recent recognition in Malaysia. She recently addressed a global gathering of firm associations where she addressed how to create a winning culture, and given the major transformations hitting our members in firms and companies, we figured this is the right time to talk about this critical topic. So Sue, welcome and say hello to our audience.
Thank you very much for that, that lovely introduction, Tom. I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. And Sue, first of all, congratulations on our recognition by Great Places to Work for the 4th consecutive year across these 7 countries. What do you think has been the most critical factor in sustaining this level of success in creating a positive workplace culture globally?
Sure. So let me start by painting a bit of a picture of where we stand with Great Places to Work. So as you rightly say, we've done this for a few years now. We've been typically running a major survey every 2 years. So we did it first in 2020, 2022, and then most recently this year. And I'm going to say it again because our employees will love to hear their countries called out. So I know you did it already, but we've always been certified in our major 3 hubs. So in the UK, in the US, and in Malaysia. But most recently, this year, we have added certification for China, for India, Ireland, and South Africa. So I'm super proud of those teams for what they've achieved. And this is largely thanks to Great Places to Work expanding the number of countries that they offer certification in. So during this window, when we've been running Great Places to Work, we've been navigating significant changes in our organization. Now, some of those, many of your listeners will have those themes in common because we're all tackling what does post-pandemic working look like, for example, and we're no different. But also specific to us, we've been thinking about what are the impacts of, for example, the changes we've made to our digital platform. What kind of bearing does that have on how people do their work, how we structure teams, etc.? So through these changes, I think to address your question, the constant that's really important in our culture is that we expect our people to show genuine care for each other as we drive change. Now, I want to make a bit of a personal statement as a leader, because I think there might be some people listening who might be at odds in their view, and I want to kind of put it out there so that everything I say in the rest of our conversation makes sense. So I think there can be a bit of a mindset that showing compassion and being an empathetic and caring culture is at odds with being commercially astute. And I really rebel against that notion as a leader and think that through one, you really do get to the other. And so I think all of the things that I'm going to tell you about that I'm very proud that we've been doing put us in a better position to be successful and to serve our members and don't compromise that focus. Okay, so I just wanted to put that out there. So the areas that I think are shining through in our results, where I think we are getting a lot of things right, and I'm going to mention 4 areas in particular. So, and these really play to our values, to what we call our behaviours. So firstly, fair treatment. So since we've been running this survey, we've always scored really well here. So low 80s was the lowest mark we've achieved, but we're into the high 80s, close to 90% now. And what this question focuses on is, irrespective of sexual orientation, race, gender, age, etc., do employees feel well treated? Do they feel there's a level playing field for them to participate in? And so we do really well in this space, and that shouldn't be a surprise to us, because we place a lot of focus on it. However, doing the job I do, my mind immediately goes to, hang on a minute, that means 10% don't feel so good. So, so this isn't done for me, and I will continue to push this focus. But I'm super proud of everything we've achieved to make sure that people feel that there's fair treatment for all. I think that's central to our culture. The second area is around people management. Now, when you're designing a culture and when you're thinking about what do we want to be famous for in our culture, you can't make a positive outlier of everything. Okay, so you need to decide what you want your positive spikes to be. And we decided early on that the quality of people management needs to be one of our positive spikes. Why? Because it leads to the employee experience that we target. Okay, so, and we truly believe that that excelling at people management, making sure that people go into this role, do it for all the right reasons, take it seriously, have the space in their day to do it well, and are committed to doing it well, is culturally imperative. So, and this shines through in our results too. So, so we get a high score here for showing empathy and support in the way that we manage people. And again, our scores are in the high 80s%, 87%. Thirdly, I think the work we do around making sure we have a welcoming and inclusive culture is really important. So we really care about this stuff. So making sure that people feel welcome when they come into our organisation, that they feel able to show up and be their authentic selves. They don't have to bend themselves out of shape to conform to some kind of stereotype or a way of being. We really believe that if you can come in and be yourself and be authentic and be valued for that, that you'll do your best work and you'll feel happier. So, so we've placed a lot of importance on making sure that the tone of our organisation and that the way people experience it when they come in is right. And again, high 80s% on that, so 87% consistently over the last two surveys. And then the final area that I would mention, and we kind of focused on this before others started to. So flexibility is what I want to talk about, but we were striving to be a flexible employer before COVID was even a thing. And I think it remains a really important part of our culture. So again, this is one of those positive spikes. We aim to have people telling stories about how flexible and supportive we are as a culture. And this has two axes to it, really. One is, where do I show up to do my work? So the flexibility between the workplace and home or anywhere else. But the other is, are we sensitive to the whole person? So if you think about someone's life and when they hit a bump in the road, they have something difficult to focus on in their lives, maybe a bereavement or tough time with the family, etc. And they need a bit more space to focus on that. We take a long-term view. We look at the bigger picture and say, don't worry, we've got you. Okay, we'll give you the space you need, because it happens to all of us at some stage. And that's not only is it the human thing to do, it's the right thing to do, but also I think it's smart. When I go around the various global offices and listen to why some of the really tenured employees stay with us for so long, these are the stories they tell. And sometimes the stories are 10 or 20 years old. Yeah, there was this one time when this company was so good to me and really had my back. And that story is fresh in their minds. So I would offer up flexibility as the fourth area that explains why I think we're doing so well at getting this recognition for being a great place to work.
Well, now, so I know firsthand about it, because I work with you all the time, and you've been amazing at helping us kind of build and reinforce this great culture. Let's talk a little bit about the employee value proposition. And I know some of it you've kind of covered in these big four things, but talk more about how that works and what are the critical pillars of that whole notion.
Sure. So an EVP is a brand, right? So it's, what do we want our employment brand to be? What do we want it to feel like to work in this organization? And we embarked on a project. So this isn't something we did in isolation or did very quickly. We did it over a 2-year period, and we're incredibly inclusive at all levels and globally. We worked with a third party. We took it very seriously. We wanted to get our story right and not just trot out lots of buzzwords. Okay, so and make sure that our story was one we could really stand behind and that people would say, yeah, that's what I experienced. So the overarching strapline, if you like, and this is deliberately simple. What we say is we do what matters. We do what matters. Okay, so at any given point when something is sent to challenge us, we can cut through the noise and say, what do we really need to focus on here, or where does our energy need to go? And this simple philosophy helps to galvanize us as a global organization. And there's enough wriggle room in that for local teams to feel empowered to say, well, actually, in Asia, what we need to do to make this real and effective for our environment is this. We're still staying true to the principle. So our overarching principle is we do what matters. And often when we're stuck or we feel we're going adrift, we say, right, are we doing what matters? Okay, so, and then the pillars that sit underneath that, there are 5 of them. So, and I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes on each because I think this is really important. So first of all, community. So we want the association to be a place where people come to work, where again, people can show up and be themselves. They feel that their contribution is valued, and that our processes and systems and the way we operate caters for that. So how do we do that? So the principles that are at play here are: we use data to uncover and minimize the impact of conscious and unconscious bias. So we go looking for, is there any bias at play here? And what do we need to do about it? We create loads of opportunities for conversations and for listening. It's so important at all levels. And I'm going to tell you about some of those opportunities as this conversation unfolds. We drive behavior change and accountability at all levels in the organization, and we're really trying to turn the brightness up in our culture on accountability. We commit, and you'd expect this when you look at the nature of our organization, we commit to continuous learning and growth. We're really big on humanizing everything we do, so increasing empathy and understanding through courageous conversations. That's a concept I'm going to unpack a little bit later. This next one is really important to our people. So we acknowledge, celebrate, and learn about our differences. So our history, our cultural backgrounds, and our experiences in life. We recognize and reward inclusive behavior. And we also think and act globally and locally. So there, as I mentioned earlier, there has to be enough space for a local leader to put a local interpretation on something and make it work for that environment. So the first pillar is community. The second pillar is continual learning. So we empower, in fact, we require our employees to own their own learning journey. I think that's a really best practice principle. And we also recognize that people have very different requirements. So whether they are introverted or extroverted, whether they're neurodiverse or neurotypical, depending on how experienced someone is and what they've done in their lives so far that helps them to make sense of the learning that they're required to do. So we need to provide an environment where there's enough flexibility for people to get what they need. Now, there are certain areas where I need us to do better. So, and this is one of them. So our most recent survey said that 74% of our employees think that we're providing really good learning and development opportunities. That means a quarter think we're not. And so this is something where I want us to intensify our efforts and get under the skin of what people are thinking of when they're giving those answers to the survey. So that's a work in progress for me. We need to aim for the stars on that one. So continual learning is the second pillar. The third one is forward thinking. And I want to highlight in particular innovation in regards to forward thinking. So and what we mean here is putting interventions in place that enable team members to feel comfortable voicing their opinions. So we offer multiple different feedback channels very deliberately, as many as we can think of, and where people can share both openly and anonymously. And I wanted, Tom, if it's okay with you, just to mention a few of those, because I think they're working really well for us. And then I want to talk about what those have yielded by way of benefits for our organisation. So we run regular webcasts and town halls, so really interactive sessions. But importantly, there are a range of tools that help people to provide input anonymously. And in some cultures, that's really important. It encourages people to speak up. So we make really good use of those tools. We have focus groups, so insights on surveys, on technology changes, and most recently and topically on workspace design. Okay, so lots of focus groups on whatever it is we're trying to make decisions about. In the DEI space, we've coined this phrase, conversations that matter. And this is an opportunity for employees, and these are very employee driven, but for employees to discuss their lived experiences based on different demographic topics. I'll mention this a little bit later as well. We also run management forums. So tied to my point about management being so important in our culture and managers showing up well and giving people a good employee experience, they often need help along the way. So a safe space to go to say, hey, I'm struggling with something, or I need some ideas, or I'm not sure I got this right. And so we run various management forums where people can make themselves vulnerable, share what they're struggling with, get help from each other, and get help from the experts in my team that can maybe set them in the right direction. We run a DEI council and culture champions, and these are brilliant. So these are groups of volunteer employees who are just passionate about the subject, and they're running monthly meetings to help enhance our culture through various activities. So real minimum of management interference on that. It's employee driven, and it's great. And then data is really important. So we do run various polls and surveys to make sure that we've got the pulse check of the organisation, that what we think is the case is still the case. So if you think if we're running great places to work every 2 years, we need pulse checks in between because things can change. So what all of those different initiatives are yielding for us are ideas and suggestions and reactions that have resulted in some really big changes for us. And I just wanted to share a few of those. So some of the changes we've made in our people policies are a direct result of output from these forums. So it's all about listening to employee feedback. So changes in parental leave policies, paid time off, maternity leave, fertility treatment, pregnancy loss, and menopause guidance. So if you get the culture right, people will come forward and say, I'm struggling with something really personal right now. And what would have really helped would be if you'd have given me this space or this support or this information. And you really know you're getting something right in your culture when people will make themselves that vulnerable and know that by speaking out, you're going to value that feedback and maybe consider making a change. And we've been privileged to have some feedback directly from employees who have really been struggling with some of that stuff and have given us ideas. And we've listened and we've reflected that in policy changes, which I know has received really positive feedback. The way we manage professional development in our organisation had a real overhaul about 4 years ago as a result of employees saying, this isn't always working for me. So we restructured the way learning was available, and we stay very close to people to make sure that what we're providing is hitting the spot. And then the third area I wanted to mention is pay and benefits. So it became obvious in one of the early surveys that managers didn't have the confidence or the agility around this subject to explain it to employees or to have those critical conversations. Now, they can be forgiven for that because it's a really involved technical subject. So we knew we needed to do more. So in response to that feedback, we provided, and we do still provide, pay and benefits training. Lots more transparency. So I have a real aspiration in our culture for us to be as transparent as possible about everything pay, grading, benefits, etc. related. It just develops trust, and we have nothing to hide. Our job is to be fair and even-handed and equitable, etc. So we want to be as transparent as possible and make sure that people understand how they're being treated and why it's fair. So we've done a lot to increase transparency and to try and employ plain speak in the way that we describe some of these things. We spent many months a few years ago developing a total reward philosophy with our senior leadership team. And that's now in place and working for us, and we review it regularly. And we also publish it in a transparent way on a paid portal. so everyone in the employee can make access to that. And some of the technical benefits areas, if you think about retirement policies, pensions, etc., they're complex, they're difficult, and so we've needed to provide more workshops and partner more with our third parties to demystify those topics and make sure that people have the information they need. In fact, just generally considering well-being, financial well-being is a really important pillar of that focus, and so making sure that we value people for focusing on that themselves, and we give them support and information to be financially responsible and maybe to make good decisions for themselves is something that we've put a lot of focus into. The way we value jobs, so we've really tried to be more systematic about the way we design organizations, measure jobs, explain why jobs are measured that way, etc. So we put a lot of work into that, because that's the foundational level. So you make all sorts of decisions based off how jobs are shaped and valued. And then we routinely promote things that people might forget are there in the moments when they need them, things like the employee assistance program. So just making sure that people remember those things are there and can access them easily when they really need them has had a lot of focus from us. The fourth pillar is care. So prioritizing everything employee wellbeing related. So we've implemented several initiatives here. I've mentioned the Wellbeing Culture Champion. So this is a dedicated group of people who volunteer to review peer needs and to organise activities to encourage dialogue. Okay, really important that we get these conversations above the line and that we understand what people are struggling with. Making wellbeing resources available. So we have a self-service hub with a wellbeing toolkit, the EAP details, and also it's the trend for providers to provide apps so that people can download them on their phones, and so we make sure that people know they're there and make those available. Very specifically, and we did this around the end of the lockdown period, we made a big play on increasing understanding of stress and burnout management. So our first focus was to educate. And we partnered with a lady called Dr. Britt Andrietta, and the research she'd done, the books she'd written, the training that she provides. And we've really embraced the work that she's done. And we've been providing that training for around 4 years now, 3 or 4 years. And it's really made a big difference to us. It's called Change Quest. So if anybody wanted to go and research that or even follow up with us, I'd be happy to provide more information. But it starts with education and taking a position that says it's not our intention to burn you out. It's not our intention to put you under undue stress. And it's great if you talk to us about it if that's where you are. Mm-hmm. So flexible working, I've touched on already, but it's all part of the care pillar, and making sure that do you remember I was mentioning earlier about not just where you work, but making sure that people are viewed holistically and that we're taking good care of people, whatever they're going through in their lives. And then also time off. When I first joined the organisation over 6 years ago, there was an employee suggestion floating around, which was called Summer Fridays. We implemented it, and people love it. So during the summer, for 9 weeks, people get Friday afternoons off, so start their weekends early. And people post all over LinkedIn saying, this is what my employer does this great thing. This is what I did with my Summer Friday today. Here's a photo of me on the golf course, whatever they're doing. But yeah, people really value it, and it makes a statement about the employer we're trying to be. We have a day off for World Mental Health Day. That's really going down well as well. So those kinds of things, just making, and we also have a volunteering policy so that people can have a couple of days off a year to go and volunteer in any form they wish. So in the care pillar, those are the things that are really important to us. And then finally, empowerment is the fifth pillar. So we encourage team members to engage in the community volunteering, as I've just mentioned, and they have a lot of autonomy and freedom to just go and use those days. Some people volunteer at their kids' schools, some people volunteer in building projects or homeless shelters, whatever. We really just encourage that they use their days and do what they're passionate about. The second area of empowerment I wanted to mention is if you think about the organisation that we are, so we're serving the accounting profession, and I'm going to generalize now. Accountants like a rule; they like rules, right? And I'm trying from a people perspective to say I'm going to ease up on the rules and give you more flexibility to do the right thing for your people. Okay, so I'm going to provide you with a loose framework, but I'm not going to give you rules to follow. And we're dialing down on those because you need to be situational and do the right thing in those circumstances. So the example I would give you is compassionate leave. Now, there's no right answer. Because some people might have to fly around the world to attend a funeral or take care of their loved ones' affairs or whatever. So our guidance to managers is do the right thing. See how much time someone needs, how much time do they need to recuperate, etc., or attend to practical things. But make a decision, and we've got your back. Okay, so those are some of the things I've mentioned about how our EVP is coming to life, Tom.
So those amazing stuff, and you've covered all the major parts we wanted to kind of click into here. And given our time allotment, I want to close, and I'm going to circle back to talk about those 5 pillars, because I think you covered those extremely well. You covered every major thing we wanted to talk about. So where would you recommend someone starts? Because we're talking about mainly, most of the audience would be finance and accounting professionals. So where would they start? I mean, obviously it's been a journey, and it's never ending, right? That's what you're basically, we're continually trying to improve this. We also connect those values and behaviors to our strategy, which is how we also kind of bring all that to life. But where would you tell someone to start?
In terms of galvanizing a culture?
Yes. Yeah.
So the first point is be inclusive. So invite people to join in the dialogue. Don't keep it around the board table, etc., because that's not necessarily representative of the community you're trying to serve. So get a dialogue going. So maybe start with, and it's if you like, there are 2 axes to this. So what does it need to look like for us to be successful and thrive as an organization? And what is it that's going to enable our employees to be happy, healthy, and feel most connected with the purpose of this organization? So you need to consider both of those. And I would set up a series of workshops and start to populate. So for example, I talked about our behaviors, and you've referenced them too, Tom, sometimes called values. You need something like that. So what is it that's important to the very fabric of who we are? And so you need some way of articulating that. And then if you start talking to people, you'll start to get some themes coming through around what's important. So, for example, how we work, how we get our work done, hybrid working, etc., will be a topical theme. How we avoid siloed thinking and make sure that we're moving forward as one organization. So these are the kinds of themes that come up. And then you just start to populate it and workshop it. So you get the bones of what looks like a conversation, and then you drill down. Okay, but start by getting a framework that says, who are we and what's important to us?
Yeah. So you're tying in the whole idea of purpose and values, and then living that. And I think, and then that gets us to the whole great places to work, which is an amazing accomplishment. So I want to thank you for this conversation. I want to just talk about the key takeaways for me. And I've been able to be working with Sue now since I've joined the association about 3.5 years ago. Those 5 pillars: community, continual learning, and in this environment, more important than ever, forward thinking, care, and empowerment. Yep. And like you said, get those conversations, begin to drill down. But I love the "we do what matters" theme, which gets back to our purpose, right? For us, it's transforming the finance and accounting profession to power trust, opportunity, and prosperity. So Sue, great conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. I think for the rest of our group, you can follow her at Sue Warman on LinkedIn. And we're going to drop our video of the AICPA and CIMA in our comments when as we go live here. So with that, Sue, thank you so much for being here with us. And for all of our viewers and listeners, we'll be back here the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of each month at noon Eastern, and we'll see you then. Thanks again, Sue.
Thank you.